I'm Eiza González, and this is my last meal.
Every person has exactly two things in common. We all gotta eat and we're all gonna die. Today's guest is an actor who you might recognize from Baby Driver, The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, and Three Body Problem. She's got a whole lot more roles coming your way, including In the Gray, directed by Guy Ritchie. And all that success is despite getting fired from Plaza Sesame when she was just 5 years old. Eiza González, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Of course. How dare you terrorize Abelardo Montoya on that set? What happened?
You know what? When you're a child, you're just a menace, I think. And that never went away for me.
I didn't realize that Sesame Street in different countries had different characters.
Yeah.
What are the differentiating factors between our Big Bird and your Abelardo Montoya, and how do they end up with such different names?
Even in the Spanish language, they're different.
Yeah.
Like from Spain to Mexico is different. Like the Powerpuff Girls are like Chica Superpoderosa. Like Home Alone is Mi Pobre Angelito, My Poor Angel. How do we come up with that?
And Pancho Contreras.
Pancho.
He loves extreme sports.
Pancho.
Is his thing. We didn't have an extreme sports Sesame Street Muppet.
So bizarre.
You know?
I guess that Mexicans love extreme sports. Maybe that's just popular in Mexico.
I mean, you certainly did growing up, right?
A lot of people don't know, but I used to race professionally motorcycles
Yeah.
when I was young. My father was a professional motorcycle driver. It was really funny because I had this tiny little helmet with ears on it, and it was all pink, and all my covering protection gear was pink.
Yeah.
And speed is something that I really loved my entire life.
I think that translates in a lot of your movies. You tend to be going really fast a lot of the times.
A lot of cars, yeah, I do enjoy it. I guess, my brother's 14 years older than me, and so I grew up, and he was a Marine, and so I grew up with really incredibly masculine energy, and I didn't really have a strong identity as a young girl because I was quite ADHD and bizarre, so I kind of adopted his personality for a very long time.
Yeah. Well, have you thought about your last meal before?
You know what? Weirdly, it's a conversation that comes up often.
Interesting.
I think also from Mexico, people have a ginormous interest in Mexican cuisine. Every single time I bring up the fact that I'm from Mexico City, a lot of people bring up food. It's the first thing they ask. And it runs the gamut when it comes to cuisine. You have like the street food, but also the infusion based on whether it's Mayan inspired or Aztec inspired, and then you have something more of like a gourmet version of it. So it's incredible. And then we eat crickets. It was so weird.
Chapulines.
Chapulines, yeah. Have you ever had it?
I have. I accidentally, they've only been featured on this show once, and it was because I did feed them to Hilary Duff.
Oh.
I thought she would be down with them, and she seemed really horrified. So if you ever run into Hilary Duff in the wild, maybe you can introduce her to chapulines in maybe with some mezcal, more.
I've done it. When we were doing the press tour of Baby Driver and we were in Mexico City, we were at this restaurant. It was like Lily James and Edgar, and it was sort of most of the cast. And I said, you guys have to eat them. We eat them all the time. And they were like, really? And I kind of tricked them into believing that I've had them a million times.
You've never had them before?
I've never had them. I've not once tried it.
Did you like the chapulines?
I did not eat them.
Oh,
I forced them all.
You watched them eat them, and
I
you never
watched them
even...
all. They all ate them. And then they were like, what do you think? I said, I don't know. I've never had them.
You ready to eat?
I'm very excited.
Eiza, for the first course of your final meal on Earth, we have spicy tuna hand roll, the Takis with lime, and then the Jarritos strawberry.
Wow, this is, have you ever had a jarrito?
I don't think I've ever had the strawberry Jarritos.
Not to be redundant, but it's like a rogue one. Like, no one really thinks this is a really good one, but it's always missing. You can't get it because it's the best.
That's fun. Well, hey, cheers. Let's
Salud.
start with that. Salud.
I love a jarrito. It's kind of like the taste of my childhood.
The glass bottle is so much better.
It's so much better, isn't it? I grew up on the border. My family's from a place called Caborca, Sonora, which is like a small town on the border of Phoenix. And basically there's, truly on our little town, there's like 2 main streets.
Yeah.
And like the peak of our activity of the weekend was to get on a car and drive up and down those 2 streets and like wave at people. That's all we did.
Yeah.
But at the corner of those 2 streets, there was this ice cream place where they did 2 of the most amazing things ever. which is, it's not takis, but they would do nachos and they would open them and they would do the craziest Mexican mix you've ever seen, like pico de gallo. They mixed queso crema. They would put and then you would just eat it in that bag and then a jarrito always with it. And so that just drinking jarrito brings me back to Sonora immediately. As soon as I taste it, it's like I'm 14 years old again.
Oh, did you call those tostilocos or like dorilocos? Because that's what
Tostilocos.
Growing up in Southern California, I mean, you're sort of just so much of the culture that you're consuming is Mexican culture. So my ice cream man also in Rancho Santa Margarita in Orange County had tostilocos. Yeah, and so I just have and sometimes gummy bears, which I never liked in there.
Are you my brother? Gross. Are you my long lost brother?
I think so.
You're like an honorary Mexican. I'm very impressed.
Thanks so much. I wanted to ask about Takis.
This is, the best hangover food you could ever have. This and chilaquiles, obviously, but because, spicy just food accelerates your blood, and so when you're hungover,
is it real hard science?
No, I don't know if that's a hard science, but I have decided that I believe that, and so therefore hangover by default, and it has to be with limon, which is the other part. Like we call them limon. Lime is lemon, and lemon is lime for you guys.
Should we pop these open?
Yes.
Okay. Do you put the lime directly in the bag and shake it? We also have a bowl if you want to empty them out.
Excuse me. What do you mean? That is the most un-Mexican thing I've ever heard.
We can also get you chopsticks.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't touch the lemon. No, we definitely do it, and sometimes, depending on how you like it, I like to leave my lemon inside. Lemon, lime, however you want to call it. This was like, I dreamt of getting 5 pesos in Mexico because there was like a lady that sat outside of my school, and she would have like a couple of chips and always takis, and so I would beg my parents for 5 pesos so I could go get this. You can put Valentina. Have you ever heard of Valentina?
We have a comically and all the bottles of Valentina are this big.
They're humongous, just as big as this bag.
We have one in the fridge. Blaine, would you mind getting the giant comical bottle of Valentina in the fridge?
Oh, that's some OG. There you go, that's Valentina.
Oh my God, thank you.
So if you weren't having enough spice,
we didn't get this for your meal, by the way. We just had this here.
Okay.
This is incredible.
Try this. You have to try them both.
Oh my God.
They have to be drenched. They have to be drenched because I feel like the lime cuts the spiciness out of it. So it makes it more eatable, I guess.
I think Takis maybe permanently changed the world palate. I think it really did.
So good. Let's see how you feel about Valentina in this. I'm very impressed that you can eat this. Most people would get raging diarrhea from one of these.
Hey, the night is young. We still got probably another hour and a half sitting here eating. We'll see. Especially when you get all the dairy into the mix.
You'll chase it with a little spicy hand tuna.
This is insane.
Incredible.
When you were on Lola Raza Una Vez, you used to have an old lady that would come with a folding table and set up a little shop with like Takis and cigarettes and candy. Was this a regular, like, in-between takes for you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is this how they get the children to work so hard?
Yeah. And then I wonder why I was so chubby. I was just, like, eating away. Like, did not pull back. She was my girl.
I'm curious, working on the telenovelas, you did more than 500 episodes of television before you turned 18. What did you learn?
Really?
Yeah.
Did I?
I believe so.
That's crazy.
What did you learn from doing that sheer amount of volume? I mean, you did 225 episodes of Lola in 1 year?
It's all like a big blur.
Sure.
Yeah. Being exploited as a child is all big blur. No, it was really great. Those experiences are so formative, and at the time you don't realize, you're just happy and excited to be there. I couldn't believe that I was getting an opportunity. I couldn't believe that someone saw a talent in me. When you're a child, you're just a little kid with dreams and you can't really tangibly see it becoming a career. And so it was it never felt like work. It just was so exciting. And I didn't have to get woken up in the morning like I was a full-fledged independent child, and because I was just so eager to go to set and so eager to learn something new. I mean, listen, you're not doing like the top quality acting, and it's like a crash course in performance because you don't. I went to school only for like 7 months before that of acting school because I'd convinced my mother to let me drop out of school to become an actress, and I don't know what made her make that decision because she's crazy. But I just was like grateful that I got the opportunity. And so I never really paid attention of how much I was filming or whatnot. I was just trying to learn. And I definitely look back, and there's bad habits you can pick up from those things because you are on a rhythm that it's discombobulating. You don't have a minute to sort of stop and think, what am I doing?
That's almost one of the most dangerous things is when you fall into those patterns, you're sliding down, this whirlpool, and unless you have the inertia to make you stop, you just keep going down that route.
Correct. And you're just a child, and so you don't have the sense of discernment of being able to recognize whether that's a positive thing or a negative. You're just incredibly excited and eager. And so I think that once I moved to the US, what was my strength became my weakness. And so I had to really work to undo those bad habits. And, there's certain performances I look back and I'm like, God, that is brutal. You transition from a different country, and stylistically, people are looking for different things in one place to another. And one thing is knowing that exists. I knew that there was a style of films, but I just didn't know how to make those. And so I just had real desire. But I watch some of my performances on From Dusk Till Dawn, and I'm like, this is probably some of the worst acting of all time. But I was nervous. I didn't know the language. English was my second language. I'd never acted in English before. I had to really learn to be compassionate and easy on myself because I was just learning, and I was doing the best I could with what I could do at the moment. But it became this undoing of bad habits from melodrama and becoming more of a naturalistic actress in America. And that's very different. I mean, stylistically, night and day.
Yeah. Dig into the sushi, please. It's getting cold. Takis and sushi, I don't know that these have been eaten. I'm sure they've been eaten together before. Definitely not at this table, and definitely not by me. Where does sushi bring you in your mind?
Sushi was something weirdly very popular in Mexico. My best friend growing up in elementary school, Sakuya, was Japanese. And her father had come to Mexico to become a chef in one of the biggest Mexican chains called Suntory. He was a chef, so I would eat a lot of their food at our home, and I became utterly obsessed. And so I just developed this passion for Japanese culture in general. Anime was huge. I started, one of where I recognized that I had an artistic drive was through drawings and anime. So her and I would draw a lot of anime, and I'd watch this network called Locomotion, which would play, it was kind of like an Adult Swim, but it had all these Japanese animes from your typical Ranma and Sakura Card Captors to Cowboy Bebop. And I was just genuinely obsessed with Japanese culture. So I don't know, I've always really loved anything Japanese.
I love that. I want to go back to something you said earlier when you were like, I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing that you were sort of working that much. As a kid, it seems like there's kind of a lot of gray areas, which is one of the taglines of In the Gray. You're sort of working with this team that exists in moral gray areas. Do you think you have more or less clarity on your life looking back in terms of what was right and wrong?
I have less clarity. I think that at the moment, I felt really strongly about what was I doing and why was I doing certain things. But in hindsight, I think you are a child and you're at the mercy of adults, really old adults too. I mean, older men making decisions for you, and sort of those decisions become, your life. And I'm just reminded that I'm really grateful for having such a good mother around me that time. My mom was like a beast. No one effed with me. She wasn't a stage mom. She wasn't a mom that was like, go do this so we can make money out of you. She was just like, she could see that I found happiness in the craft. And you find yourself in this confusing place where do you either support it because that brings them joy, but also it could be dangerous territory. So I don't know. I think about it sometimes as I would let my children do it, and I'm like, no way. To your question, I look back at it and I'm like, there's a lot of gray area. There's a lot of gray stuff that I wouldn't necessarily know how to describe, or experiences that probably have shaped some trauma throughout my life. You never really know.
You're kind of on this tightrope doing a high wire act, it sounds like, Everyone's watching you on the tightrope.
And judging you and have an opinion about who you are, your identity, how you look, how you don't look. And that becomes really jarring when you don't have an identity of your own and you're portraying a character, and at the same time you're developing yourself and finding who you want to be fully. I have a lot of empathy for anyone that has gone through that experience. You see all these, amazing artists in this day and age that have transitioned from child stars to ginormous musicians or movie stars, and I know what that experience is like, and only people that have lived it know what that feels like. It's dark. It can be really dark, but also makes you very advanced in the way you see the world, if that makes sense.
Of course. Eiza, for the second course of your final meal on Earth, this is the main attraction. These are the chilaquiles verdes, and then we have an oat milk iced latte from Blue Bottle.
Oh my God.
And of course, all the Valentina you can drink.
Just in case.
Just in case.
Double it up. Oh my God, this looks incredible.
Tell me about your love of chilaquiles.
Well, nothing makes me feel better after a hangover than chilaquiles. Right after you eat it, you're just done. You have no hangover.
We did make these from scratch. We did a roasted tomatillo, poblano, and jalapeno and serrano salsa with a little bit of onion and cilantro. I sauteed the chips in there, added a little bit of queso fresco, crema, sunny side up egg, and some avocado.
This is incredible. Good job. I could die. I could eat chilaquiles every day for the rest of my life, and I'd be super happy.
I hope you get to.
Oh my God. This is so good.
The thing that I find so beautiful about Mexican food is that there is so much ancient history in it. So chilaquiles are likely more than 1,000 years old. The chilaquiles, it's a pre-Hispanic Nahuatl word, right? The first tortilla was made 10,000 years ago. Like, this is a dish that connects you to something very ancient.
We were able to make food out of scratch, like nothing. That was the concept of Mexico. You feed the land, you grow the land, you love the land gives back to you. And till the day, that's kind of our mantra in Mexico. We give back to the soil. It's not a country that was built on big monetizing companies making this, that. I mean, I remember when I moved here, the farm to table thing was like a concept, and I was like, well, isn't that the norm?
Yeah.
And I think that really struck with me when I realized that it was actually not the norm. Mexico has blown up in the world, and nothing makes me happier than sharing lists of restaurants, places, bars, food, because also we're just talking about food, but there's the whole drinking part of it all, as well, the history of how we make mezcal, the way that we make tequila, the years that it takes, the work, we work the soil, you make it with like chicken on the soil, and you're like making holes on the floor, and that hasn't changed. Like, years of generations have passed, and they could have made it, a fast machine, and somehow it just maintained like a labor of love. Its families and generationally passed to the other one to maintain la mezcaleria or the tequila place. And it really enriches the soul. It reminds you that life is about that. It's not about getting the nicest car or the nicest, it's just building this something historic with your loved ones,
You are in a movie that's coming out that takes pretty much that exact thesis in life, and that is I Love Boosters, directed by Boots Riley, who is a very, very politically radical director in a way that I love, because he doesn't waver from this sort of anti-corporate, anti-consumption, anti-capitalist message.
Correct.
And you play a character who has the job of really explaining some heavy philosophical concepts. How much reading did you do going into that role?
Well, I felt a lot of sort of responsibility, because as you just said and you described perfectly, Boots is someone that subtly drops mad knowledge. Violetta is the representation of a rebellious, soul that really believes that capitalism is taking over and we need to stop it and we have to honor humanity again. And she believes in the faith of humanity and honoring people. And the cherry on the top, obviously, is that she's like incredibly knowledgeable about science. She's just this stoner geek. I've been cast in some roles that I never thought I would. Somehow I end up a lot in the science world, and I don't think I necessarily scream scientists.
Well, I'm curious what you think that means, because I mean, you started certainly in America a lot of your career playing like the femme fatale archetype, sexy vampire, sexy robot with blades for arms, sexy bank robber. But then, like, now, two of the last roles that I've seen you in, you're explaining dialectical materialism and nanotechnology. I guess, do you think that's imposter syndrome, or do you think there's something, I don't know, kind of ascientific about what you play?
The other way around. I think that the sort of immediate presentation is sort of something that probably was projected onto me versus me choosing to do so. And when you're just starting your career, you're just grateful getting the opportunity.
Yeah.
Man, like I'm like, I know zero other Mexican actresses at the time that had crossed over and had a successful career like Selma. And
Choosing your role seems like a real like luxury and privilege, frankly.
Oh, I still don't get that.
Yeah, sure.
Luxury. I think that a lot of people don't talk about that. I think as a Latin woman, it's really hard, and it doesn't matter how many years in the career I hear from other women that have opened the doors at work. They're still having to create those opportunities for themselves because people are not necessarily giving them to them. So when you find directors that like Jay Blakeson when he gave me I Care a Lot, or Boots giving me this, or Benioff and Weiss offering me Three Body Problem, you're just sort of incredibly honored and grateful that someone is seeing something outside of a stereotype in you or allowing you to expand. And I've always found that interesting when it comes to specifically Latin women. I find that it's been harder for us to sort of break through that conceptual idea.
Do you think that it's gotten better over time? Like, have you seen a noticeable difference versus when you started your career in America in 2013 versus now?
I think the industry has been forced to listen to audiences. I think that it's not, I don't think necessarily.
What an insane concept.
Yeah, I don't think they were like wanting to. They were obligated to listen to audiences, and now you have Twitter and Threads, and people can voice their opinion about what they want to, and they're listening. And so I think that forced, while audiences engaging with people of color and watching more interesting TV shows and blowing up movies like, Sinners, and movies that really are making a difference and mentioning timely subjects. I think that a lot of my peers have done an amazing job choosing the right jobs to change it. I really admire all the actors that are making a ginormous change, because it is a community activity. It's not something that you individually can do.
Is it for course number 3 of your final meal? We have the penne a la vodka with chicken. Please dig in. So we sauteed a little bit of shallots, a little bit of garlic, lit that on fire with the vodka, toasted up some fresh tomatoes and tomato paste in there, and then just a fresh, crispy chicken breast on top with some basil.
Wow. Bon appetit.
Buon appetito.
I could eat forever. I wish I could just live to eat.
I know. Do you think you'd get tired of it, though? Do you think there's some sort of... No? I think there's a sort of philosophical angle.
Who could get tired of eating? It's like the greatest thing on earth. I don't even think sex lives up to it.
No,
I really don't.
Well, you just think sex, you need to eat in between sometimes.
I could totally live without sex.
Sometimes you need to go to 7-Eleven in between to get a couple taquitos on the rollers.
I could never quit food.
No.
I could quit anything. Food, it's just, we don't deserve it.
Someone posed this question to me, not just food, but sex or sauce?
I mean, food above all. Just food.
I agree.
Traveling the world is only fun because you're eating. Mm-hmm. Because truly, if you think about it, it's uncomfortable.
Agreed.
But what soothes the process is food.
That's why you started a very successful acting career, just so you could get your traveling around the world and eating funded. And I love that for you.
It is the best.
I
think I was 18 the first time I moved outside of Mexico, and I lived in Argentina for 4 years. And I experienced living in a different country and tasting new food and experiencing a different culture. And I never stopped realizing from there on that there was the most amazing part of our job. I mean, learned so much from different cultures and different people, and stylistically how they work in a different place.
You've really traveled the world a lot with Guy Ritchie, because you've now done 3 movies with him, and I think about 3 years is when they've come out. I mean, you traveled all over doing The Fountain of Youth as well. What do you think it says about you, though, that you've had so many repeat collaborators? You're obviously somebody that people really want to work with.
It's the never-ending imposter syndrome. You go into these sets, and I think it's taken me a while to believe that I'm worthy of being part of it. I think there's internally my own stuff, and then obviously my own... I think that no one really gets the opportunity to fully believe that they're being able to be part of this world. And we go to these sets and work with our idols. And you can never fully process that, I think, because we're all children. Like, that's what I tell people. We're like, what's like Hollywood? I'm like, we're all the same. We're just children obsessed with make-believe and just excited to, like, put on a costume and say words. And with the people that you looked up to. So Guy Ritchie being one of them, sometimes people get the chance to see you, and he saw me, and that was very meaningful. And I have the chance to do that with other people. And in this movie specifically, I repeat with all my co-stars and with him. I worked with Jake, I've worked with Henry, and I worked with Rosamund. Yeah. So it was a really beautiful feeling to revisit a set with people. You see it a lot with other actors. You see Emma, Stone repeating over and over again. With Yorgos, like, it's fun. It's fun when you sort of get the chance. It feels like high school. You're like playing Believe, and like, what are we gonna play like today? Like, it's just fun. Yeah.
Your life seems like it's really been this form of contrast causing change. We have a bit of a surprise. I'm curious if this Subway turkey sandwich with pepper jack cheese and extra Chipotle Southwest sauce jogs any memories on where you might have been while eating this. And what was going on in your life.
God. Well, I ate this for years and years on end when I moved to LA. This was like my go-to. By the way, I think Subway is the shit. I love you, Subway. I could eat Subway forever as well. If there's one person alive that buys Subway, that's me.
You're holding up the entire 30,000 Subway economy.
When I just moved to LA, it was the only time I've had a roomie, my roomie. It was me and her. Her dog was named Taquito. Subway was right behind our apartment. Like, it was the one place. And obviously, like, I wasn't spending thousands of dollars in food. I was just, like, saving up money to make it in Hollywood. And so Subway was my go-to food. And, like, after every failed audition, or a hangover, of course, that's why I brought up that I'm an alcoholic. I was an alcoholic. I would always, like, eat Subway, but it got to a point that I just ate Subway 24/7. And once I, like, moved up in the world and I was able to, like, afford my own apartment and whatnot, I still kept this tradition of going to Subway after my auditions. And no matter what, failed or successful, I would eat my turkey, pepper jack, extra Chipotle. Damn.
I love that so much. Do you view your life in sort of different eras? Because when you came to America, you're eating all this Subway in that apartment, it was because you had like a really public traumatic breakup. And even when you started acting, it was when your father passed away in the motorcycle accident. And you hadn't had any acting experience before that. From the outside looking in, at least, it seems like you've had these very traumatic events, and then that sort of activates you in this way to where you just zoom forward. Is that because you're trying to not look back?
I don't view, weirdly, my life as traumatic. And therefore, that's trauma itself. You just live it, and you're in survival mode. And sometimes in interviews, like, if I could, people, you could change something. And I go, I wouldn't even change my father's death. And that sounds really dark if you think about it. But it just makes you, it like builds you. It's the foundation of the human that you become. The way that you deal with adversity and the way you try to process things. And so, but it's also given me the strength to put up with a very grueling career. And everyone sees this interview and the talk and the ha 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 and he, and no one talks about like the dark side of when you're not getting opportunities or you don't have money to pay the rent or you're like chasing a dream and you dropped out of school. Like I think about it all the time. I'm like, my mom is a lunatic. I dropped out of school. What if this didn't work out? I would be really in trouble. I wouldn't have.
But also truly, like, what if it didn't work out? Because I think your mom maybe had faith. I mean, your mom, pregnant when she was 18 in orthodontic school.
Yeah.
And there was, I'm sure, so many what ifs in her own life that she's shown a mirror on and said, well.
I think you've just nailed it in the head. I think it is faith, and having faith is the most important thing. And I think that in a world we're all not really seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, I think faith and belief in yourself is the most important thing. And I don't shy away from the fact that I realized that I was very lucky that things worked out for me, because it could have gone really badly.
Tightrope with the whole world watching.
tightrope.
The whole world, and also in insane Mexican media.
It is. Yeah. And that's why I admire anyone that chases their dreams. I really do. And when you see them celebrating them and being proud and maybe sometimes cocky and conceited about it, like sometimes you have to, you know what I mean? Yeah. Sometimes you have to hype yourself up and like believe it, because we are living in a world that everyone's trying to knock you down with humbleness or like make you feel like you're not worthy of something. And we live in a hyper-aware world. Back in the day, you're sort of living your career and trying your best, and you didn't really have a sense of what the other sounding voices outside were thinking about you. Now you just gotta open Twitter and got humble real quick.
I deleted all social media from my phone. I'm free.
Oh, it's so nice. It's so crushing because
just the ESPN app that I scroll through constantly now. That's it.
Well, I don't think that you can be a creative human being if you're highly aware of what's being talked about you. No. I just don't think you can be in this creative flow and create art and be free of yourself. And so I do feel a lot of empathy for us and for the people that are like following and starting their careers in this environment, because I still, when I was doing Lola and I was doing all my soap operas, and even when I started here, I didn't really have that. I wasn't really looking at what the Twitterverse was thinking about or the letterbox or the this and that. I just was doing things and I was thrilled by that. And now everything's like, you know, if the announcement came out or this came out or the review came out, it's not about the art anymore. And I think we gotta just like shove that away, be creative, do whatever the hell you want to be doing. And I really think you have to be courageous and push through and like push away from the trauma and let that go. But it is hard, you know.
I never know if I should let that trauma go or sort of keep it in my back pocket as something to fuel me. But I don't
think you can let go of trauma. I don't think it's a real thing.
It's in your backpack regardless.
It follows you forever, and it like flares up like in the most strange, random places. I find myself flaring up in the most bizarre ways and really taking it a beat to be like, wow, I didn't know that was in me. But it's beautiful. I think trauma is beautiful. I think that adversity is beautiful. I think that being someone that pushes through, and it's messy. And it's okay to be messy too. I think that, again, life is very complicated. And so, and we're living in a very crazy time.
Yeah. I had something that a therapist said to me once, because I was sort of going on my own rehearsed spiel about I'm grateful for my traumas because that's what's made blah, blah, blah. And she kind of had to stop me and go like, have you ever thought that you're successful not because of your traumas but in spite of them? And I just broke down and started crying.
It's true.
So it was the first time somebody could sort of like grab me and say you're okay to let down that guard that I'm sure she'd seen 1,000 times before. Do you ever feel like you're able to let that guard down?
Yeah, it's hard. It really is hard for me. It's experience is hard on you, and I think that becomes challenging to any individual. And you really start getting older, and you're more set in your ways, and instead of being more malleable. But I think that's what I like about our career is you are forced to continue to be malleable, and if you're not, then that's kind of the death of your career, because that feeling itself, that act itself is what fuels growth as a performer. And so I'm grateful that I always can fall back into the craft and I can always go back to acting, because it reminds me that you can't harden yourself in a specific way. You have to consistently keep it moving, and art lets you be that vessel. And so I always say it, my career's really saved me over and over and over again. It's a double-edged sword, you know. It's both so brutal, and there's days that I can't pick up myself from bed, and I don't believe in myself, and I don't think I can do it, and I think I'm a fluke, I'm a imposter, I don't know how I've made it this far. And then there's days that I'm like, wow, this job really has given me purpose in life. And so it's just, I think, I can only talk about my personal experience, but everyone could probably feel that way if they're getting the chance to do a career that they're passionate about. And so I never take for granted my career. I really will endlessly thank anyone that thinks of me to be able to keep on doing it.
Eiza, for the final course of your final meal on Earth, we have the chocolate fondant, the lava cake, and arroz con leche. Please dig in. Now, this is a fresh meringue cake with ganache baked in the center, and we run about a 78% success rate on it being molten.
Okay, here we go. Oh. And this moment is, wow. Oh, yes. Look at this beauty. This is so naughty, you guys. You really chose correctly your job, your day job.
I think you and I both figured it out pretty solidly.
Oh my God. Do you do food dances?
No. I like watching other people do food dances, but I feel creepy now.
Do people do it? I'm just like,
I'm kind of here. This is where I really stop being Mexican and really start being white.
Yeah.
Is I'm just here. Yeah.
It's the off time.
They're laughing
It's
because they
the
know.
snapping off time for sure.
I came into this.
You need to have a little food dance. You're not eating good food if you're not dancing. Did you know?
Sometimes I do a single stoic white guy fist pump, you know?
So good.
I'll go like,
That's so American of you.
so, listen, I said
Let's go, bro.
When's the first time you had chocolate fondant?
It must have been with my best friend that I was telling you about, Sakuya, because they did it at that restaurant, and it was like a very fancy restaurant, and I was like, this is what life is about.
Especially as a kid, this is like the most exciting thing that could possibly happen.
Have you had arroz con leche before?
I have. I'm a huge fan. We did this fresh. We boiled the rice in the milk, added a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of lime zest actually, just to sort of set it off.
Oh my God.
Here's how we do.
Seems like we could get you a little dance. Yeah.
Kind of like give the hips a little bit.
Ooh! It's so good.
I want to ask about a clip of you that went viral from Hot Ones where you were able to cry on command through one eye. And that was spectacular. But I'm curious the context behind it, because you said that there's like a 5-year period where you didn't cry and couldn't cry. And it was only through acting, I think at that high pace, that sort of allowed you to find that emotion again. Was there something in finding that emotion in acting that allowed you to grieve in a way?
100%. I truly, again, that's the beauty of the craft. And I always love watching. I remember when I was young, I'd watch the Actors Studio a lot. And I wanted to go to that school, and I eventually made it into Strasbourg.
Yeah.
But it started from there, where I would watch actors explain what were they experiencing while creating a character or whatnot. And sometimes it was completely the opposite, where as comedians we're having, they're making a comedy, and
Sure.
but they're sort of grieving something really dark that had happened, and they would bring up the death of a parent or a death of a loved one, and I remember finding that confusing. But then if I applied the same rule to my life, I think about my beginnings, and I was doing optimistic, fun, childlike characters that are fun and happy and sassy and all these things, but I was really in a dark place. I was dealing with heavy depression over my father's death. It was really hard for me. I dealt with a lot of bullying when I was young, and I never really was able to process that. That was categorically a big catapult into why I grieved through performance, and obviously it is exacerbated once my father passed, and I really, as you said, I couldn't cry, I couldn't deal with emotions, but that guided me to push harder. I was like, this is not going to limit me. I'm not going to be limited by what I'm experiencing in this moment, because I can come on the other side. And I don't know, I'm 12 years old. How do I know this? I don't know, but I really find incredible children. Children are incredible. I always think about it, because when we're older, we are set in our ways, and we sort of I find myself dealing with things way worse now than I was when I was younger. I had so much more fire in me and maturity to see further down the line, maybe as ignorance, ignorance is bliss, and there's so many opportunities yet to meet. But I do find that children deal in the most amazing ways, and so I love that the craft allows us to explore and dive into different areas of our lives and tip our toes and use it as a catalyst to process emotions. Again, how lucky are we? Not a lot of people get to do that, and now I'm like a crying machine. Now I cry about everything. When I get to work with kids, in 3 Body Problem in the next season, I work with a kid, and he's just, it's amazing to observe, because it brought me back to when I was a child and I was him and his age, and I was living exactly what he was living, and I was just, it's magical, the transition of life and the process of life and how you kind of can come back to who you were before and recognize it in other people and see, wow, I was once that little person, and he might not be able to explain a lot of things, but he's so full of life and ideas and creativity and so earnestly living. And I don't know, sometimes I kind of dabble between like, would I ever leave or allow my children to do this career? And I'm like, hell no. And then I'm like, absolutely, this is like the most amazing career. Again, I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We ask everyone on the show, what do you think happens when you die?
What happens when you die? You just die. You're just gone. Hasta luego.
Was that always your
Bye.
Was that always your philosophy, or is that something that came?
I've just had a lot of death in my life from a very, very, very young age. A lot of death. You know, within 1 year, 4 people died in my life, like all my grandparents and my father. And that was such an early stage of my life, and then it just kept happening for a lot of my life. And I think that it's something, you know, I think about death every day. I don't know if you think about death every day.
Yeah.
There's people that don't. I'm flabbergasted. I revisit a lot. Like, my dad died at 42. When my dad died and I was young, I thought that was so old. I was like, he is so freaking old. He's so old. That's totally normal to die. Now I'm so close to that age. Well, not so close, but close-ish.
15 years old.
Like a little bit close-ish. And I think, wow, holy cow, like 42 is so young. Like, he lost his entire life, and that just gives you so much perspective about things. And I'm like, at 42, he didn't see me grow. He didn't even know what an iPhone was. Like, it blows my mind sometimes. I'm like, he didn't know what an iPhone was. He never saw it. And it just goes to show that life is just this magnificent experience that we get to do. And we're all, again, I repeat, we're in this massive consuming world where we're like, and the next thing, and the next job. And I catch myself like, and the next thing, and if the next job, and we're just so consumed by it. And we're not realizing, like, right now, this is amazing. We're here. Like, I'm having a conversation with you about food and, like, my history and where I come from and my family and my tribe.
Yeah.
And that's all that matters. And then you die. And then nothing mattered. And so that's my thoughts about death. Like, the aftermath, who gives a shit?
You ready to go on the lightning round?
Yes, oh my goodness.
Who's the one person, dead or alive, you don't want to share your actual last meal with?
Dead or alive?
Yeah.
My dad.
What song do you want to be played at your funeral?
Some, like, deep trap. Like, I wouldn't want people to go down and, like, party and just be like some Bad Bunny, probably.
Tortillas de maíz o tortillas de harina de maíz?
Maíz.
Who's your dream eulogizer at your funeral?
Wow.
Bad Bunny might be cheaper because he's not performing.
Yeah.
So I think then the rates would drop.
He'd be like, Mommy. Mami, ya tú sabes. Dale.
Who's sexier, Jafar from Aladdin or Jack Skellington?
Wow, I see what you did there. You know, Jafar really awakened some dark thoughts in me. Jafar was my sexual awakening. Yeah. But I was like, my first love was Jack Skellington, so it's hard.
What's your biggest fear?
My biggest fear? Death.
What did Christoph Waltz's face taste like?
Rich.
What's your greatest regret in life?
Biggest regret? Not continuing in my singing career.
Finally, Eiza, are you happy?
Not really, but it's okay. That is okay.
That's the best answer, and maybe the closest answer that I would be able to give. Truly, I mean, you are absolutely refreshing. What a wonderful time. I could geek out about Mexican food all day. Thank you for being here. If you want to deliver your last words to that camera right there.
Dale.
In the words of Pitbull, Daddy Yankee, and all the greats that came before. Check out In the Gray in theaters May 15th. I Love Boosters 5/22, both only in theaters. In theaters?
Yes, only in theaters.
Go to the theater.
Go to the theaters. Watch original movies. Original movies. We need more of those. Please, please, please support original stories.
And someone subsidized the Raisinets industry. The Raisinets are going to die unless we buy them at movie theaters.
I don't like Raisin Nuts. It's okay. They can die.
The perfect way to elevate all of your meals. The Last Meals Bar Set is available now at mythical.com.